In 2016, a man named Gene Haas paid $200 million to enter Formula One and finish last. Not metaphorically last, literally last. In the Constructors' Championship, in their debut season, Haas F1 scored 29 points. Every other team scored more. His drivers crashed into each other at the opening race in Australia. His car, which had been built in partnership with Ferrari to save development costs, was disqualified from 2 consecutive races over a technical infringement so obscure that most journalists covering the sport had to look it up. Gene Haas is a machinist from Ohio who built a $2 billion CNC machine tool company from scratch. He is not an impulsive man. He spent 3 years studying the Formula One business model before he wrote the check. He understood the costs. He understood the risks. He paid the $200 million anyway. This year, he is reportedly in discussions to sell a stake in the team at a valuation of over $1 billion. That gap between a $200 million entry into last place and a $1 billion exit before a single championship is the entire story of what Formula One has become. And if you want to understand why some of the most financially sophisticated people in the world keep writing enormous checks to go racing, you have to understand what they are actually buying. Because it is not a race car. It is not even a sports team in any traditional sense. It is a global media distribution platform that happens to have wheels. Formula One has 10 teams. There will never be 11. Not easily, not quickly, not cheaply. The current entry fee for a new constructor is $200 million, paid directly to the existing teams as compensation for diluting the prize fund. That fee was set in 2021 when Andretti Autosport, the American racing dynasty, applied to enter the sport. The FYA approved the application. Formula One's commercial rights holder, Liberty Media, rejected it on economic grounds. The existing teams, who would have split a smaller prize pool with an 11th entrant, collectively opposed it. Andretti spent 4 years and an estimated $100 million in legal fees, lobbying and development costs, fighting that rejection. They eventually received conditional approval in 2024. The condition was the $200 million fee. The sport's governance structure had effectively given the existing 10 teams the power to set the price of their own competition. This is not an accident. It is the defining characteristic of the Formula One asset. The scarcity is structural. The existing owners control entry, which means owning a Formula One team is less like owning a sports franchise and more like owning a taxi medallion in a city that has decided to issue exactly 10 medallions and never issue an 11th. The teams are not just competitors, they are shareholders in a cartel. Here is where most people's understanding of Formula One breaks down. They hear that a top team spends $500 million a year and assume the money goes on the cars. It mostly does not. In 2021, Formula One introduced a budget cap, a ceiling on what teams can spend on car development and racing operations. The cap started at $145 million and has been adjusted annually for inflation. For the 2025 season, it sits at approximately $135 million. This sounds like a restriction. It is actually a floor. The budget cap excludes driver salaries, which at the top of the sport run $50 to $60 million per driver per year for the leading names. It excludes marketing costs. It excludes the commercial and hospitality infrastructure. It excludes certain categories of personnel costs. A top team like Red Bull or Mercedes does not spend $135 million a year. They spend closer to $400 to $500 million when the full picture is assembled. The cap covers the competitive elements. Everything outside the cap, the brand, the driver market, the commercial relationships, is unrestricted. For a midfield team, the economics look different but not simpler. Williams, which has won 7 Constructors' Championships and is one of the most historic names in the sport, was sold in 2020 for $152 million to an American private equity firm called Doralton Capital. At the time of the sale, the team was running a budget of approximately $130 million a year and finishing consistently at the back of the grid. They were spending at near cap levels and producing nothing near top-level results. The problem was the gap between the budget cap and reality. A team spending $130 million to develop its car is theoretically competitive with a team spending $135 million. But Red Bull and Mercedes had spent 15 years building infrastructure, talent pipelines, simulation technology, and manufacturing capability that exists entirely outside the cap. They have wind tunnels, they have composites facilities. They have a decade of institutional knowledge in their aerodynamic development programs. You cannot buy that with the budget cap. You can only close it over years of sustained investment in everything the cap does not measure. A Formula One team has 4 revenue streams, and understanding their relative importance tells you exactly what kind of business this is. The first is prize money. Formula One distributes a portion of its commercial revenue, currently around $1.2 billion per year, across the 10 teams according to a formula that rewards championship performance and historical legacy. A midfield team finishing 6th in the Constructors' Championship receives approximately $100 to $120 million. A championship-winning team receives $200 million or more. For the smaller teams, this prize money is not a bonus. It is the financial foundation that makes it possible to keep operating. Teams have gone bankrupt because they finished one position lower in the championship than they needed to. The second is sponsorship. This is where the scale of Formula One as a media platform becomes visible. The sport broadcasts to 1.5 billion viewers across 180 countries. 24 races per year, each one a 5-day event generating television coverage, social media content, and digital reach that no other motorsport property comes close to matching. A title sponsor on a competitive car, the logo on the nose cone, and the side pods that appear in every photograph pays between $40 and $80 million per year. A secondary sponsor pays $10 to $25 million for a package of placement, hospitality, and activation rights. Ferrari carries 12 to 15 corporate sponsors simultaneously. Their total sponsorship revenue is estimated at $250 to $350 million per year, not including the commercial value of their own brand, which exists entirely separately from any sponsorship arrangement. Ferrari does not need sponsors to fund their racing program. They use sponsors to amplify a brand that generates $5 billion in road car revenue annually. For Ferrari, the racing team is not a cost center. It is the marketing department for a luxury goods company, and the budget it operates on is entirely rational when viewed from that angle. The third revenue stream is the manufacturer relationship. 7 of the 10 current teams are either owned by or in a deep commercial partnership with a major automotive manufacturer. Mercedes, Ferrari, Red Bull Powertrains, Aston Martin, Alpine, Williams partnered with Mercedes, Haas partnered with Ferrari. The manufacturer provides the power unit, the engine, which is the single most complex and expensive component of the car. An independent team buying an engine from a manufacturer pays approximately $15 to $20 million per year per power unit. A factory team receives them at cost or below cost in exchange for the promotional value of the partnership. The fourth is the valuation itself, which has become the dominant factor in why sophisticated investors are entering the sport. In 2017, Liberty Media acquired Formula One's commercial rights for $4.4 billion. The sport's total enterprise value, the 10 teams combined with the commercial rights, was estimated at roughly $8 billion. Today, that same total enterprise value is estimated at over $15 billion and growing. The Drive to Survive documentary series on Netflix, which launched in 2019, introduced Formula One to an American audience that had largely ignored it for decades. Between 2018 and 2024, American viewership of Formula One grew by over 40%. 3 American venues, Austin, Miami, and Las Vegas, now host races. The Las Vegas Grand Prix generated an estimated $1.3 billion in economic impact in its debut year. This is a sport that was growing slowly for decades, and then, between 2018 and 2024, discovered the American market. Every team in the paddock repriced accordingly. Here is the structural tension at the heart of every Formula One ownership decision. The sport is a competition. Competitions require an outcome. 1 team wins, 9 teams lose, and the gap between winning and losing in Formula One is not close. Between 2014 and 2021, Mercedes won every single Constructors' Championship, 8 consecutive years. During that period, they did not have the largest budget in the sport. They had the best technical leadership in the form of chief designer Adrian Newey's successor generation and technical director James Allison. And they had built systems and processes that compounded over time in ways that no amount of spending could immediately replicate. Red Bull, when they broke the streak, did it by hiring Adrian Newey himself, the most sought-after aerodynamicist in racing history, and giving him complete authority over the technical program for nearly a decade. The implication is stark. In Formula One, technical talent concentrates at the top and stays there. A midfield team trying to close the gap to the front is not competing against current spending. They are competing against a 10-year head start in knowledge, simulation, manufacturing, and institutional process. The budget cap prevents them from buying their way to parity. Nothing prevents the front-running teams from retaining the people and infrastructure they have already built. This is why a team like Aston Martin, which was purchased in 2018 by Lawrence Stroll, a Canadian billionaire fashion mogul, for $218 million and subsequently received over $1 billion in additional investment, including a brand new state-of-the-art factory in Silverstone, finished 5th in the 2023 Constructors' Championship, had their best season in decades, and then finished 6th in 2024, when the regulatory advantage that had briefly suited their car disappeared. $1 billion of investment, a brand new factory, and they finished 6th. In September 2024, Red Bull fired Adrian Newey. Not fired, allowed his contract to expire, then watched him sign with Aston Martin for a reported $100 million over 3 years. Red Bull had won 4 consecutive Constructors' Championships with Newey's car. The moment he walked out, their competitive trajectory became a question instead of a certainty. One man, one departure, an entire dynasty put into question. This is the human capital risk that no due diligence process adequately captures. Formula One is not a business where the asset is the factory or the equipment or even the car. The asset is the people inside the factory. And the people can leave. Newey is the most extreme example, but the same logic applies 10 levels down the hierarchy. A team's performance in any given season is substantially a function of decisions made by 50 to 100 highly specialized engineers, any of whom can be hired away by a competitor at any moment. There is also the regulatory risk, which is real and recurring. Formula One's technical regulations are rewritten every 4 to 5 years in major cycles and annually in detail. A team that builds its entire competitive program around a specific regulatory interpretation, as Red Bull did with their dominant 2022-era cars, can find that interpretation closed or restricted in the following year's rules. Mercedes spent the 2022 and 2023 seasons understanding this in real time, having designed a car philosophy that the new regulations made fundamentally difficult. You can spend $500 million on a car that the rules make obsolete before the season ends. And then there is the geopolitical dimension. Formula One operates in 24 countries. Its calendar includes races in Saudi Arabia, Abu Dhabi, Azerbaijan, Bahrain, Singapore, China, and Las Vegas. Each venue represents a different regulatory environment, a different risk profile, and a different political relationship. The Chinese Grand Prix returned to the calendar in 2024 after a 4-year absence caused by COVID restrictions. The Russian Grand Prix was cancelled in 2022 and struck from the calendar permanently following the invasion of Ukraine. Force India, a midfield team, collapsed in 2018, partially as a result of sanctions complications arising from its Indian ownership structure. The sport's commercial footprint requires a risk management operation that most sporting businesses never need to think about. The financial case for owning a Formula One team today rests on one number: valuation growth. Between 2020 and 2025, the average Formula One team has roughly doubled in value. Haas, bought for $200 million, is being valued at over $1 billion. Williams, bought for $152 million in 2020, is estimated at $600 to $800 million today. Sauber, the team that will become the Audi factory entry in 2026, was valued at approximately $400 million when Audi acquired a stake in 2023. None of these teams are winning championships. None of them are generating positive free cash flow as standalone businesses. They are appreciating assets in a market where the supply is fixed at 10 and the global demand for premium entertainment experiences keeps growing. The question is how long that appreciation continues. Formula One's American expansion is real, but it is also maturing. The Drive to Survive effect has already cycled through its most dramatic viewership growth. The 3 American races have been added. The novelty premium will normalize. What remains is a sport with a genuinely global audience, a genuinely scarce asset base, and a commercial rights structure that has consistently rewarded long-term holders. Gene Haas finished last in 2016. He is worth over $1 billion in Formula One today. He never won a race. In most businesses, that would be considered a failure. In Formula One, it is called a very good return.